Wajiha's Learning Academy. Today we have to discuss the balance of power. Firstly, we have to discuss its introduction. In the state system, the control of violence is the most vital function, and the institution with ultimate decision in this area correspondingly is the most important. The institution, though it is a source of most or much confusion, is called the balance of power. In the history of thought on the problem of what to do about interstate violence, the balance of power is the last principle scheme of the three schemes. At the first scheme of idea of world government emerged, the most of states rejected the idea due to the high value of their national sovereignty and the emergence of major conflicts. After the limited form of integration in Europe after the Second World War, the second scheme of collective security, which is the midway of both extreme ends, could not prove itself impressive. As a result, the third scheme, the balance of power, which stands at the second end where the power is most dispersed, exists. All the nations accepted the scheme and it lasted up till the fall of the Soviet Union. The balance of power has been used as an effective tool to control the violence and halt the aggression. Therefore, the scheme became popular among the statesmen as well as among the theorists who have described it as a basic principle of the international relations and the fundamental law of world politics. According to the many theories they have described and they have discussed and they have described the definitions of balance of power according to their own analysis, but according to the Hans J. Morgenthau, he described it as only a particular manifestation of a general social principle. The balance of power is something that maintains the equilibrium of power in the international system or in the international relations just to avoid the occurrence of war, because the war of first world war and second world war, it has created the many drastic changes in the history. So the world of international politics, it has become very kind of conscious about the destructions and the losses of human lives, and it has created the fear among the politicians, among the statesmen. Therefore, the concept of balance of power, it came and everyone is agreed with this principle. So let's discuss the different techniques they are able to maintain the balance of power. Alliances and counter alliances. The most commonly used devices of the balance of power has been the alliances. An alliance is kind of a contract commitment entered into by the two or more states to engage in cooperative military actions in specified circumstances, and it has been used as traditional instrument to strengthen the one's position in versus of the opponent. So there is the kind of counter alliances or the alliances in case these are, we can say them as offensive and defenses. The offensive alliance seeks to upset the balance of power in favor of its members, and defenses is aimed at restoring the balance. The alliances are built up one out of the necessity, because it was the most deemed necessity of common interest are directed against a common enemy. Like we have witnessed in the Cold War that there was a lot of alliances and counter alliances between the great powers. Now we have to discuss the compensations. The word compensation is used as the kind of territorial nature that were a common method for maintaining a balance of power in the 18th and 19th century. Territorial compensations have frequently being made by the strong powers as the most of important arena, because there was a very kind of Victorian nations at the end of a Cold War. So at the end of war, so it was kind of compensation, like you have to make the compromise on one thing and you have to prefer on other. So this policy is also used as the useful technique after the wars. Then we have a partition. It can also be used as an instrument for the maintenance of balance of power. Usually the major powers they have divide the territory in such a way that there is no danger of any one of them acquiring a predominant position. But partition is another rule that was used as a kind of a technique or a kind of a method to avoid the occurrence of war, as well as to avoid, because of the increasing kind of technology in the international arena, and there was a kind of fear of destruction. So partition is another rule to control it, and it was used by the different powers, because if the partition doesn't occur, the expansionist policy will destruct the whole international system. And this technique was used after the Second World War to limitize and to limit it the danger by the great power. So there was a kind of division in that state to maintain the international peace and harmony. Another technique that is used is armament and disarmament. Armament is kind of to control, to build up your armed forces and to be technologically powerful. It will create the fear in the minds of the opponent, and on the other hand, the powers who are in your competition, they have also used the same policy. In this way, you can be able to counter your enemies and to make the international peace possible. And there was a lot, and on the other hand, there are the other agreements they are being used to maintain the international peace and harmony. Then we have an intervention and non-intervention. This policy is also used to intervene the specific kind of methods. The international government, they can never interfere into the domestic affairs because this is not their duty. They interfere at that cost when the conditions and the circumstances they are out of control by the same state. So these techniques are used as a because the non-intervention is a political term meaning virtually the same thing as intervention. This kind of policy is usually followed by the small states and also by the great powers which are satisfied with the political order and can very well follow the peaceful method to preserve the balance of power. So these techniques are used to maintain the international peace and harmony. And balance of power, we can say that after the Cold War, there was a kind of different scenario, and now we have to discuss the different terms that are being associated with the balance of power. Whenever there is only a sole superpower in the international system, we term this kind of system as unipolar international system. When there is only sole superpower and no power is exist between, above and beyond. So this kind of system we mentioned as the international system is unipolar balance of power. The bipolar balance of power, just like after the Cold War, there was a only sole superpower that exists, and then we have to discuss the bipolarity in the international system. This term is used when there is an equilibrium of balance of power and there are two great powers. They are in the competition with each other, and this system is called as bipolar international system, like we witness in the arena of Cold War. Now we have to discuss the multipolar international system. Multipolar international system is a system that exists now and we witness in the history of Second World War when there was a number of great powers that exist in the international system. So we have to sum up the lesson. The balance of power is something that is the very useful technique and it is a concept to maintain it, and it was actually a scheme to maintain the international peace, harmony, and to control the danger of war. So that's it.